Hello, everyone. This is Shannon Port, and I welcome you to the Holy Womanhood podcast. This podcast is going live on Friday, March 20th, 2026. That is the day of the spring equinox in the north. We announced the podcast and the title on Friday, March 13th. So it was Friday the 13th that we made the announcement that the title of our podcast today is The Betrayal of Eve. The Betrayal of Eve. And this may sound like a heavy topic to be covering on the spring equinox, which is truly, truly a day of rebirth for the goddess. However, this is not only the betrayal of Eve, this is both the betrayal and the rebirth of Eve. And when we talk about Eve here, we're talking about the collective feminine with a capital F, but we are also, as the name might inform you, talking about the collective woman, who we often refer to here as the primordial woman, the archetype of Eve. And so I welcome you to the Holy Womanhood podcast. This is our third episode in 2026. And I want to let you know that this episode goes live on spring equinox, which is a Friday, but I really want to let you know that I am so excited to announce that this podcast will now be every single Friday, and we're going to upload at 10 a.m. Pacific time and 1 p.m. Eastern time. And I think that's a really good time to reach everyone that is in this audience. And we have people all over the world. And so please make sure that you subscribe, whether you're watching it on YouTube or listening on Apple or on Spotify to our audio podcast. Make sure to subscribe, and please make sure to hit the notification bell, because I am looking forward to being able to really allow this fountain to flow. As I said on Instagram on Friday the 13th, the dam is about to break. The dam is about to break, and we mean this with the full feminine force when we say that the divine waters of the heavens, the holy fire, is ready to truly baptize our planet with the wisdom of Sophia. And that includes the wisdom of the body of Eve. The body of Eve is the work of what we call here Goddess Kabbalah. I've talked about that in the past couple podcasts, and it is profound, the wisdom that we are opening up with the correspondences and the 13 archetypes of the Venusian superpowers. So, what I would like to say, and also, please make sure to leave your comments, because now that we're not live, I really look forward to reading what you have to say in the chat underneath the video and also on Spotify. What I would like to announce today before we get into this material, because it's very, very deep, is that this stream, this Sophia Logos, is coming from the Motherhood of Light, which is a collective body of luminous feminine goddess beings that are the source of the goddess Kabbalah, the divine feminine Kabbalah, and the Kabbalah of woman. This work is coming in for the age of Sophia. As I give this transmission today, I want to let you know that especially this episode is a channeling that has been given through the Akashic realm, the higher solar feminine Akashic records, and it comes through the Motherhood of Light. It is that voice. It channels through my vehicle, which has been very trained over the past many years to receive that particular frequency. And yet it still has to come through my human vehicle, and my human ego is part of that. But let me tell you that when this particular episode came through, it came through. There are different levels that I work, and there's always an open stream. But when this level came through, when a body of writing comes through, and I literally feel magnetized to go and grab a pen, because I do all my writing with pen. And usually there's 1,000 pens around me and they're all out of ink because I write so often. But when I get that feeling and I'm scrambling to grab the pen and grab the stack of the white paper that I use for the transmissions, and when I cannot keep up to the words that are flowing through, in other words, I barely have time to even digest the movement and to process what's written, that's when it's a really, really powerhouse of a transmission. So this is how this work came through. This particular episode, The Betrayal of Eve, has come like that. And I did not read it until right before I'm going to record this episode. And it is very, very powerful. And I want to really just ask that each one of you that will be hearing this message that comes from the motherhood of light, the universal motherhood, the cosmic motherhood, that you call upon your own highest guidance, and that you receive what you are meant to receive today. As I was reading this back, and I waited a while to reread it because it was too big. The force with which it's coming through is so powerful and so potent. I was afraid to look at it, meaning sometimes I have to give some space before I look at it. And when I looked at it, it didn't disappoint. It really packs a punch, and it says some things that really require spiritual discernment in order to hear the poetry. The feminine speaks in poetry, even when the language is very, even when it sounds mundane, there are frequencies layered within it. And that's how we work with the archetypes here. For those of you who know this work, all of our work here is alchemy, archetypes, astrology, Kabbalah, and deep, deep goddess wisdom on the highest levels. We do not mess around here. We go in for the depth of the wisdom. So all of that is encoded in this message, and there's so many layers of archetypes that we can decode when we really look at it. But it's deep. So we just ask right now that we call upon the Christos Sophia to be present with each and every person that hears this wisdom, and may you take what serves you and what you're ready for. And if there's anything that is not meant for you, may you release it promptly and quickly and effortlessly. And if something is meant to bear fruit, may that sit with you in the garden of your heart, and may that seed find the proper nourishment in the soil of the garden in your heart. May it find water, and may it find the sunlight of the goddess and grow into a tree that bears flowers that bear the fruit of this wisdom. So be it, so it is. It is done. All right, so we're going to begin. I want to first tell you that this work here and the name Holy Womanhood for the podcast, really quickly, I must tell you, I fought really hard about using that name for many reasons we will not go into today. But as we meet every Friday, I'll be talking about why the word woman and the frequency of the holy womanhood is a threat. It's a threat to the Archons. And those of us that carry this wisdom, there is really a lot of truth to carrying what in popular culture we call the witch wound. There is a memory of torture. There is a memory of being rejected from the group. There is a memory of being left on the side of the road for dead. There is a memory of betrayal, and it goes in every single generation. And when you're carrying the high wisdom, there is an absolute memory that lives in every cell of your being when you walk in the female vessel, that there is a boundary, there is a wall. And when you hit that wall, you do not go beyond that wall. That wall is the prison wall. It's the wall of the prison. I'm just remembering when I was writing, when I lived on the East Coast, I was sitting at a really beautiful museum in the town next to the town I was living in. And there was a high, high concrete wall, but within the wall, there was a garden. And I remember as I was writing, the guides that I was working with, the Motherhood of Light, told me this used to be a prison. And it was true. The place where I was sitting, I was in a rock garden with all these beautiful flowers. And they told me this was once a prison, but now the roof is off because there was sunlight shining through, but they had kept the prison walls intact and built a garden within those walls, but it was no longer a prison. That is the world we are creating when we anchor the higher Garden of Eden on our planet Earth, on Gaia. And that is the work that we are doing. We are bringing the upper garden to merge with the garden in the underworld. And the prison walls will no longer block the sun, and the flowers will bloom. And Eve will once again rule the Garden of Eden. And so I welcome you. So I just want you to know that about the name of this podcast, though, the Holy Womanhood Podcast. It's not about holy in a religious sense. It is holy, meaning truth with a capital T, holy. It means that every cell in your being carries the divine feminine frequency. And it means that the holy woman is the birther of the wisdom in our world for the coming era, the coming age of Venus, and the coming goddess epoch. Karmically, I had to say yes to speaking the very deep collective feminine wounds. I'll say that again. Karmically, it was my contract to say yes to speaking the very deepest collective feminine wounds, and that meant using the name Holy Womanhood. Not from the 3D feminism. This is very important to distinguish. This is not coming through the third dimensional feminism. This is coming from the highest divine stream of Sophianic wisdom, which is it's another vortex. It includes the high and holy wisdom of the cosmos, not the human-made, I will say man-made wisdom that we often hear, which was indeed formed by the collective male on many, many levels. And we'll be talking about that as we go, because you know that is true because it doesn't carry the goddess wisdom. It has blocked that out. And we're gonna continue on because there's so much in this transmission. It is the female heart that carries a wound so deep that none of us wants to see it. It is the wound that has diminished our own children, that has emasculated our own men. And I'm not talking about the just the cliche archetype of the strong alpha man. I'm talking about all men. That without the feminine wisdom, man himself is stripped of the divine masculine. He cannot exist unless he walks side by side with Eve. She holds such rage, such fear, and so much revenge and denial in her field because of this wound. It is her wound that the human race carries. It is the mother wound passed in the feminine DNA to every child on our planet. Every child born of the womb of Eve carries this, which sometimes religion calls an original sin, but it's not the sin that they claim it to be. I have to tell this story. Even women hate to hear it. It is so much more comfortable to look the other way and think it will go away, but it comes back in every generation. We see what's happening on our planet right now. If you open your eyes and look, it is right in front of all of us, being served up on a platter. This is the age of the divine feminine and the Sophionic wisdom. Being stored in the unseen aspect, it creates our addictions, our dependence on lust frequency, and it literally kills Eve's heart. Sometimes women feel protected under the male teachers, but deep down, they know they have to sacrifice what they know in their cells and their DNA. Now, what I would like to say about this is we will refer to male teachers, male streams, the whole thing, but it is not to curse their name or their work. Quite the opposite. It is to say that the balancing force of the female voice and the female initiates is here. Right now, on the very day that you will be hearing the betrayal of Eve, we open Remastered. Remastered, I talked all about it in the last, in the Divine Feminine Impulse for the first 10 minutes. If you're interested in that, it is a place to study the archetypal wisdom. Remastered is about remastering our world with the female initiates that speak Eve's holy wisdom. So this is what we say about the male streams. Deep down, especially if you carry the wisdom, you know somewhere inside that you are betraying what you see in with your own eyes, with your own vision. Something is off. Now, we are going to be talking a lot about what that is. I've lived it. I know it. I know it deeply. In the Akashic record, the masters that I work with told me it took years. They told me in the very beginning, and I did not accept it as truth. Back in 2003, they said, Shannon, you are under a program. Because I would constantly ask about this teacher or this or that. And every time they would say, you're under the trance. Yes, the wisdom is there, but it will take a while before you can really see, before you really have vision. And when you do, you will be attacked. The Archontic force will come and say, put your blinders back on. Go along with the consciousness movements that say it is only about reclaiming consciousness within. That there is no polarity integration, there is no Adam and Eve. Your vessel makes no difference. It is all an illusion. Age does not make any difference, meaning in partnership, and we could go on and on and on about that. So many, once you uncover this, you realize that everything starts to fall, and you realize that Eve has been obedient to the masters of the fallen world. She is programmed so deeply, and it hurts for those blinders to be lifted. But on this day of rebirth, on the spring equinox, let it be known, we just had the Pisces new moon. It was a beautiful new moon. We are on Mercury goes retrograde or goes direct in Pisces today at 8 degrees. The number of Saturn and the number of the mother, the number of the heart, and the number of strength, which is Leo, which is the solar feminine heart. Let it be known that we are here, and we will be here every Friday, the day of Venus, to discuss this wisdom. Again, this is not a war. However, war is the attack against Eve and the feminine. In war, it is the feminine who loses her children and traditionally pays the price through her body. We know what happens to the women on the losing side for all throughout history. Now, this is not to say both the mother and the father will lose children in war. However, Eve rules the heart and the emotional body. And so even when a father loses a child, it is the heart that is attacked. It is the emotional body. And there is a deep push to push down the emotional body that Eve brings, because Eve makes it so that we have to process our emotions. We cannot turn our back on them. We have to look at the pain. We have to look at the crazy insanity of what we do to our precious world and our precious life. And that is not welcome. Wisdom is the opposite. Wisdom illuminates. Wisdom brings light, and we mean spiritual light, because wisdom is also the dark. There is a dark sun behind our sun that we see in the sky. We call it in esoteric wisdom the great central sun, or the dark sun. That sun is the invisible spiritual light that animates everything. It's the womb of the goddess. This is why Mary, Marie, is the ark of the new covenant in Christianity. And we talk a lot about this. It is Mary who represents the new Eve. But we must understand both sides of Mary to understand the metaphysics of the body of light, the immortal body and the resurrection body, which is a feminine vehicle birthed by the goddess and her wisdom. As we approach Easter, we must understand why it is Mary Magdalene, who saw Jesus first, who saw Yeshua out of the tomb, whether it's archetypal or literal. There is an alchemy to love, fertility, and art. Just like there's an alchemy in cooking, there is an art and a chemistry to everything, meaning there are the right proportions, the right ingredients to bake a cake, to bake bread, to bake anything. Anyone who's a baker, I love to bake, knows that there is a chemistry and an alchemy. And in order to make something that tastes really good, it has to be according to that alchemy. Now, there are variations, but something either the fruit tells you, the wisdom is in the fruit, the proof is in the pudding. When you taste it, you know what alchemy was in it, if it's taste pleasing or if it is not so pleasing. This is how we understand the alchemy. We ourselves are an alchemy, and we can have a bitter auric field, or we can have a harmonious auric field that emanates the goddess light. Everything is chemistry and alchemy. We must understand, okay, all things that seek to have a beautiful flavor know that the process and the ingredients matter. They literally become the matter. In our work here, we call it the holy matter. Everything we create, including love, work, children, are a miracle and a work of art. In other words, we are artists, we are alchemists, and we are working with the great laws of nature. That's what this work is. This work is an understanding through alchemy of the true laws that govern the alchemy, the feminine alchemy. We must remember that there are laws that govern creation, the laws of Sophia. Look to the solar system, look to the earth and the seasons to understand that there is purpose, breath, and divine design behind everything. When you look at the sun has come in under a contract to light our planet with the Christ force. The sun doesn't decide, I'm tired of being the sun, I'm going to go be the moon today. The sun doesn't decide, I'd like to be Jupiter today. The sun has come in with a sacred contract, and it must fulfill that contract for those who have ears to hear. Everything plays its note in the divine creation. And when we look at nature, we see the contracts of the goddess, because the nature is goddess, and how nature works as a network. Now, nature in the underworld is under the lower impulse, and so it works as an animal. Just like the zodiac governs, the lower zodiac governs our animal nature, and that's why many of the signs are governed by animals. The zodiac, the 12 signs in the lower zodiac govern our animal being. They govern our blood that's carnal and that has fear and lust. They're part of Lilith, and they're part of the animal kingdom on our planet. We see how animals, destroy each other in order to eat, and it's not beautiful or peaceful. It's nature. It's nature in the underworld. However, that nature is a mirror of our own carnal nature. And as we alchemize, that nature will become what we call the upper garden. Nature is changing with us, and it will be different. It has a whole new set of gifts and laws to expose us to as we evolve. And that is what's happening right now in our world. This also goes for the human being. We are a combination of soul, spirit, and matter. We are in Remastered, there's a famous podcast called The Threefold Soul Prism. The human being is made up of not just earthly matter. What makes human beings so divine and so important in the animal kingdom is that we have an essence inside us that is part of God. And it really comes through our mother and through her heart. The mother's heart is the portal of our God self. The mother's DNA, the feminine DNA, is absolutely connected to the cosmos. And that is why Eve and the Holy Womanhood is so important. It's why we spend so much time with fertility. So I just want to say that in our alchemical makeup, we're balancing spirit, our fire principle, soul, our water principle, and our earth matter. Our earth matter carries the tainted part of our being, and then it drags down our soul and spirit and downsteps it into levels where we don't even recognize it as divine. What's happening with technology right now is that it's removing the soul. It's removing Eve. It is turning us into just, these vessels that are meant to be tampered with without any respect or without any reverence. When you understand that we are living souls that are coming into union with our God self, our spirit, which activates what we call the Christ Sophia, the Christos Sophia, the feminine Christ, is the soul that has been risen up into the higher worlds that becomes the full body of wisdom of Sophia. When we talk about Sophia as wisdom, we're not talking about writing in a book. There is writing and there are archetypes, and that's what all of this work is about. Our work is about the archetypes. We work with the tarot, the Kabbalah, we work with the zodiac. But the wisdom itself is a living, breathing frequency. We call it the divine feminine frequency. And that frequency is the union. It's the great alchemical marriage of soul and spirit. And this marriage cannot take place until Adam and Eve are balanced on our planet collectively. Without understanding the wisdom of Eve and the feminine Christ, we have closed the gates to this wisdom. I have to get through it because I haven't even started the real transmission, which hits hard. The betrayal of Eve. This is not only the betrayal of Eve, but the rebirth of Eve on this sacred and holy day. When we lose touch with understanding, we're souls, and everything we do carries karma. What that means is that our body has a register, a memory. Soul is memory. It is water, and it records everything. Like the waters on our planets, the oceans, the streams, the rivers are the blood of our planet Gaia. They record everything that happens, just like the moon. The moon is the lunar feminine recorder of the Akashic record. The moon is also the great magnet that works to bring in all the forces on the tree of life, but it also raises our forces up and it creates both the dark underworld and it creates the illuminated world. And so until we balance Adam and Eve, we cannot get through the labyrinth of the moon. When you look at all the religion, all the masters, all the teachers, all the monks, all the rabbis, all the priests, the gurus, the masters in male form on our planet, and then of course the church has, I think, 4 doctors of the church that are women and 30 some that are men, but they're all celibate. They're all like either nuns or they've chosen the devotional life, which is beautiful. And they have brought through big, big works. However, we are missing the mother, and we are missing the alchemy of the dragon current. We're missing the feminine alchemy that purifies that current through the heart and raises it into its true power that reconnects it to Eve's tree of life, which in this work at Goddess Kabbalah is the 13 sphere tree of the body of Eve. We cannot do that until we realize the prison we've created for ourselves here by not balancing the emotional body and the mental body. We are hyper mental in this world, not the higher mind and the Christ mind and the mind of the Logos that is Uranus in the higher world, in the higher kingdom, Hokama, Sophia, on the tree of life. We are working with the fallen aspect of that. And so our mind that we think is mind here is not mind because it can't be mind until we heal the body of desire and the emotional body, until we understand why Eve was so betrayed, why every broken female heart, every heart of a mother that is stripped, every heart of a queen who was beheaded, every woman in a war-torn zone holds the heart power. And when that heart is stripped and shamed and exploited, we add to the continuation of the tainted DNA. We perpetuate and project that fallen current into our own bloodlines. And we perpetuate what we call here the fallen Mars force, which is the high and holy Shakti Sophia on the tree of life, the Holy Mother Spirit that has been inverted through the moon and become lust and war, the complete inversion of the Holy Spirit. There's a saying that the only sin that is unforgivable is a sin against the Holy Spirit. We're just going to let that sit. Digest that. It is the state of our world that we live in, that we sin against the Holy Spirit. As much as we parade around with our religions, our preaching, our Bible verses, we are not carrying the heart. The heart is much different. However, I'm seeing some people start to pop up, I just want to say, just to jump into a lighter note. I've seen some people, there are some people popping in politics recently that not surprisingly, that are going to be speaking truth. And they hold the Christ heart. More and more of that is going to happen. So stay awake, stay alert. It's coming. It won't be perfect at first, but you're going to tell by their language. You're going to tell by their vision that they carry the energy of the Divine Mother. So when we don't see the soul, we don't see the heart. And that when we talk about the techno-feminine here, we're talking about stripping away the real heart and just keeping the sort of pleasure heart. The woman is the wisdom for this era. Her technology, the female technology, holds the wisdom, the frequency of the wisdom. It's innate in the vessel of the body of the mother. She had to carry it. She could not give birth without being a vessel for Sophia's wisdom. That's just that's how the soul travels from the very, very core solar nucleus through into matter, has to come through the female heart that carries what is called the grail. When you see the Da Vinci Code and they're talking about the grail, the pentagram, the Magdalene, we're talking about a very specific thing that can only be found and that has not been discovered. We've been talking about it here. It's what my work is based upon, and it's what I got to experience consciously to understand how it works, because it will be the way that souls come in the future. In esoteric wisdom, there's a saying that we're birthing the sixth race. The number 6 is the number of Venus in exoteric numerology. Venus is 6. And on the tree of life, 6 is the sphere of Tiferet, the sun. 6 represents the solar feminine, or the feminine Christ. Woman is the temple of life, and life is wisdom. It is Zoe on the tree of life. All right, before I open this up now, this is part 2. Oh boy. We're going to say I am in the 7 directions. And so for those of you who might be new to this work, I am in the 7 directions is how we activate the field of Sophionic wisdom around us. This is a Merkaba field, and it's the 7 points of the interlacing star, the water triangle and the fire triangle. So we do this in everything we do, and we'll be doing it live as we meet on Spring Equinox for Remastered. We're going to do the true angelic ritual that goes along with this. I ask you to just call in your highest wisdom as we say, I am before me. I am behind me. I am at my left. I am at my right. I am above me. I am below me. I am unto me. And just taking a deep, deep breath in as you pull the inner vortex. When we compress the breath inwardly, we ask to really invite in your highest angelic forces to be with you, your highest divine feminine guidance as we enter into the transmission that is given for today. Releasing all your breath out. We say, I am, I am, I know I am, I am, I am, I know I am. Okay. All right. So I'm going to say one quick story about why I'm able to speak some of the things I'll be speaking now and why I'm able to actually teach the tarot and the archetypes. The people who are studying with me in Remastered, and by the way, that this is open enrollment if you're interested, but we have an amazing group that's meeting with us on the spring equinox to open up the container, to open up the portal. The reason I can truly teach the tarot now and work with people who are going deep into this transmission, which is the goddess keys of divine feminine Kabbalah, the goddess Kabbalah, is because I've finished in my own work, and I've talked about this particular transit over my North Node. The Pisces new moon this past week was on, just 2 days ago, on my North Node. And the past Saturn transits that went over it 3 times, along with the Venus retrograde of 2025, was over my North Node, which is in Pisces in the 8th house. So it was the completion of a particular grueling alchemy that my soul is working on in order to fulfill this contract and speak this wisdom. That has occurred. And so the lust frequency that I had to interface with has been conquered. The dragon current of the underworld has become the cosmic dragon force of the tree of life. And so this is where we are coming from here, a place of vision, and each and every one of you will gain your own vision. And when I talk about this full spectrum of vision coming in for me, I mean in my personal life as well as in my work, being able to truly see the direction of things, to have all the masters be present. When we work with Divine Feminine Kabbalah, we're working with 13 beings that govern the cosmos in the feminine realms, and truly, truly embrace this with clarity, strength, faith, hope, and love. The female heart is the portal into the world. The mother's heart carries the Magdalene Sophia grail that literally shapes the soul. We work with the archetype that is responsible for that. And what we see until we understand this is what we call the lust frequency, or the fallen volatile Mars force in our world. It's volatile. Lust is, there's nothing wrong with desire and lust and even the sexual current. It's divine and holy. Lust frequency is the inversion of that. It's when lust and war take on the very same frequency. They become the same thing. You know, what you're seeing in the world of the misuse of that current, which is rampant everywhere now with technology, and war, they're the same thing, the exact same frequency, because it's both the misuse of the Holy Spirit. It is a sin against the Holy Spirit. And when we say sin, we mean a separation from her truth, a turning your back on what she brings and what she's available to give to us and why she's here, in favor of something that's so much less. So I'm going to jump into this. I want to say a couple things. The Archons' biggest mission, I wrote a lot about this in the early days of Art of the Feminine, and we talk a lot about this in all the different ways in Remastered. The Archons' biggest mission is always, always to stop Eve and to persecute the mother. This is how they get to the human race. If you want to get to the human race, get to the mother. The mother is the seed. The mother is where it all begins. If you can control, this is famous words, the first podcast in Light Body Woman, we say, the one who controls the woman and the collective Eve shall control the world. Because in order to create reality, you need the woman. You need her child. You need her children. And you need her heart. We're going to be talking about the alien imposters and their connection to heart, and why you'll hear, like, in the more like truth movement types, where they'll say, like, the aliens can't create. This is like going way back. The aliens can't create their own world, or the Archons can't create. It is because they don't have the heart, which is the grail. It is the heart, and they need the aspect of the female heart. They have to have it. That means they have to hide all of the true wisdom and replace it with what we call half-baked. Half-baked. A lot of our feminism is half-baked. I say that with respect. I say that as someone who has always leaned in that direction quite heavily, but it's half-baked. Without the wisdom, without the spiritual understanding of this vessel, you're repeating something and fighting for something without having the forces of nature in you activated. In other words, you're fighting a war without the forces. In order to have the 13 forces of the mother, you have to have her wisdom. And her wisdom transcends the world of Caesar and the underworld rules that have been given to make women think, oh, I'm liberated now. I can sleep with whoever I want to. I can be whatever I want to. I can do this or that. I can turn my back on this. You'll see how strongly this comes through in this transmission. Just a reminder, Sophia is not just a presence of wisdom on our planet. You hear that a lot as well. It's not just, oh, the wisdom's going to awaken in everyone and we are all going to be so happy and just know what the cosmos is and know what we are. That is 25% of what the coming of the age of Sophia is. She needs the collective. This is straight from the Motherhood of Light, and this is part of it. This is our intro, but it's right from the mothers. Sophia needs the collective female heart, which carries the mothers and the Magdalene current, to activate and initiate our world. Do not be fooled by the New Age teachings on the goddess. The techno-feminine agenda is the harnessing of woman's womb. Feminism and liberalism operates on the 3D plane. It basically axed the spiritual teachings going way back. It had to. We are not against any of these movements. In fact, we say, welcome, come in. And it's time to really understand the truth. It will be small at first because it's hard to lay down those old, because it's a war revenge movement. And it's that movement is using the fallen Mars force. In fact, it uses the very force that's coming against it. This is what I was shown, and we've talked about it a lot in Light Body Woman and everything I teach. When women go in for it that way, they're only using a small percentage of power, and they're using the force that's being used to destroy them. And so they're actually working for their own destruction. If that makes sense, let's just take a moment. Again, may you only receive what you're meant to receive. This is the beginning. This is the revelation, and this is the dam breaking. These words that come through are of the word with a capital W. They are of the Sophia Logos being run through a female vehicle that has danced with all of this, as many of you have. It throws out the laws of Sophia in place of ego and victimhood. The feminine alchemy is the law our world has not been ready for. We just haven't been ready for it. The true Christos, I might have to wait for this till next time. The true Christos is from the Greek mysteries. And you could even say the ancient Egypt and the Hermetic stream. So in some of the exoteric religions, let's say exoteric, the Jewish Messiah is a temporal king, Meaning, and this is no hate, no disrespect whatsoever, all respect to all people who are searching and in devotion of the divine. But that king is a temporal king that was meant to come and rule the earth. We talked about the receiving of the Kabbalah in ancient Egypt and how it was able to be translated because of their messianic stream, but that's the higher messianic stream of the Essenes and the Therapeutae that is of the mysteries. And even I say this with all respect, the evangelical Christians that conflate the Christ with that Messiah are mistaken. This is used to direct the human lust impulse as the fallen Mars impulse. It's misguided. It's missing a huge part. And it's because we removed the mysticism, the esoteric Christianity. But this is not esoteric Christianity here. This is esoteric feminine Christianity. This is the reclamation of the feminine Christ and the Christos Sophia, which needs the woman to be exalted and elevated at this time. Let it be known that the goddess goes through alchemy to carry the flame. Only those who dare to transmute this unholy substance. Now, the substance, even in its unholy form, is holy. Hear the poetry of the words we speak. They're multidimensional. That seek to kill the goddess. Only those who dare to transmute this unholy substance. It's the admixture. It's the imposter that got inside the blood that seeks to kill the goddess. Only those who dare to do this work can raise the flame as the rising phoenix, the Holy Mother Spirit, and she is indeed the mother. In preparation for the goddess epoch, those who carry this stream have had to come face to face with the dark side to see it, to understand it, to gain the clarity and truth, to dispel the illusions that keep the feminine principle in chains. For it is she who will take on the 666. We've done many videos about this. It is Eve who became the mother, the goddess of the holy, cosmic, solar Mary, and incarnated. The dam is truly about to break. All right, we have a part of the transmission now that I'm going to do. And we're going to begin. We need to go straight through it. The mothers speak. We are the mothers of light. Our collective field is the stream of cosmic fertility. Let's say that again. The mothers speak. We are the mothers of light. Our collective field, our collective luminous body of the 13 goddesses is the stream of cosmic fertility. That means it is through their stream that the entire creation is birthed. It is the stream of the cosmic heart, the threefold soul prism of the universe. Our music holds the Trinity codes, the solar feminine activations, and the feminine Christ field that will lift your planet and attach it back to Eve's tree of life, Eve's primordial body, her Venusian template. When Eve sells out her soul, this is about Eve's power. When she sells out her soul power for financial security, she loses everything. We're going to just take a moment and clarify that. In our world of influencers, our world of quick spirituality, fast money, fast fame, it comes very easily now. Anyone who has a certain look, this, that, pop on, blow up. It's meant to be. However, there's a frequency. And when we sell out, it's a lust current that the feminine carries. When we sell out for that, we lose our soul power. We might look like we have all the power in the world. And I will say to you, in my own personal journey, which I'm sharing more and more, just in bits and pieces, there were times when I was offered things that would have made my life much, much easier, when I could have skipped over some of the things I ended up choosing and had a much different life, that to the 3D world looked very prosperous, successful, victorious. But I knew if there was one thing that I was sure of, it's that when I would say no and people would roll their eyes and think, you are crazy, I knew that even if I make it to the finish line in this life and it looks like on the worldly level, there's nothing there, I know nobody can take that away from you. What you gain in alchemy in this world goes with you. Now, I am not trying to make a point for sacrificing being well known, sacrificing for having successful work. Not at all. You have to just meditate on that and contemplate on that, because each person has to know for themselves what that means. And I knew for myself what it meant. And in my case, it meant choosing what looked like a lot for what basically for a long time was very, very little. I will say that what I did have, though, and the reason I talk about my son was the human mirror in front of me of my child, which I knew was one of the jewels. And you cannot put a price tag on that. It is an infinite soul. And so I just want to make sure I say that. The suffering had a lot of beauty as well. And in fact, the suffering becomes beautiful. Let's just be clear that when Eve suffers, there's a beauty in that suffering. If you can understand what I'm saying, the suffering itself, when you look at the stations of the cross with the Christ, when you truly have that devotional relationship with religion, and look, we're entering into the Easter season, that suffering and that carrying of the cross and that death and crucifixion and resurrection is it's the diamond, because you understand what it means, and you may understand it from a religious perspective, but that is what our suffering is. I have so much more to teach on this in coming episodes. So women sell out. Women who come in with a lot of gifts sell out for the relationship that is not the right one. They sell out for money, security. I will take care of you. I will provide for you. Give me your body. Give me your youth. There is a whole body of work I have on this that will be coming in a future episode. It is mind-boggling. When the Motherhood of Light gave those teachings to me, it is so clear and so real. It will blow. If you can receive it, it's quite powerful. So what happens is, it may look like she gains temporarily, but the decay and rust of Eve's vital body is permanent, meaning in this lifetime. We obviously live way beyond the individual lifetime. She loses all power on the higher astral plane until she hits bottom. Now, those of us who carry the Holy Descent code, which I do, had to go to that place. And when you understand it as a contract, I talked about this in two episodes ago. You're carrying the cross, but you're also carrying the wisdom. It is still quite deep, the suffering, but you also know that it's part of the mission. There are times when you're blind and you don't know. And you read it in the Pistos Sophia. There's times where she's, God, have mercy on me. Why am I here? Why are they eating me and taking my wisdom over and over? She says that. So there are times we go blind. But what happens is the woman sells out and doesn't realize the profound spiritual price she pays. Now, a lot of women that came in to go into the underworld and work with that level, again, I have experiences in the underworld that I've talked a lot about, where I had to go in. I had to see it. I had to know what it is. I had to feel it. I had to feel what that betrayal of myself felt like, where that abandonment of my own soul and spirit, what it felt like. So when I came back, I could understand exactly. It's not just words. Once you go into the underworld, you have the map back. That is what Goddess Kabbalah is. It's the roadmap. It's like you can go someplace without an address and you may eventually get there. You can use your intuition. You can go down the, take a lot of wrong turns. But when you have the map, you go straight to it. Goddess Kabbalah is the map of the entire template of the goddess. To say that the goddess doesn't have codes and symbols is not true. Everything in creation comes with a code and a symbol. In our oneness, we can go beyond all of it and we can feel it. But what will we get when we feel it? The symbols and codes will come to us because it's the language of Sophia. Everything is codified, everything in the world, in both the underworld and the upper world. So she loses her higher astral body, so she can no longer travel the solar realms. So in this world that's so tasty and so good, it might look like you're living in a castle. You have all the designer clothes you could ever ask for, the cars, the adoration, maybe even the man, whatever it is. We're using these as just to sort of paint a picture, but in your soul, and we see this a lot with celebrities, it's barren. The fertility is gone. You cannot create a living garden, what we call a living transmission, because it's been cut. You can eat of all the fruits. It's like when the devil tempted Christ and said, you can have all of this as far as you can see. The entire land of Caesar is yours. And he meant it. Christ is like, tempt me not. Satan, be gone. That is what we do. And we work. I'm going to be sharing with you some work that has to do with creating real wealth and what that looks like and what the energetic codes of that are, because there is a way to do that and there's a time to do that. But when it's your time to do that, you'll know. And in my work now, we are in the place of teaching the creation of abundance and wealth. And so my transit is done. And now I get to teach the codes that we hold. For those of you who know all the archetypes I teach, that are the highest manifestation code. And we are meant to have that. That is a part of our DNA. Okay. So when Eve does this, the human race hits bottom. The human race loses. Eve's children are cursed, with her selling out to join the ticket of lust, disguised as security, status. So Eve joins someone else's ticket because sometimes she doesn't even want to, but Eve has that. The shadow of the feminine is fame, adoration. When you think of like Cinderella and the wicked stepmother wanting mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all? There's a deep, deep place in woman that wants to be the fairest, and it's okay. It's part of being female. We're meant to want to attract adoration. We are meant to, and we are meant to be seen. I talk about this a lot in my work that woman is meant to be seen, and she's meant to be beautiful because woman is beauty personified. In the virtues, it is the woman who personifies beauty in the 3D plane. She has an essence and an energy that just radiates warmth and love and fire of the sun from the heart. Doesn't mean she doesn't have rage and all the other ones, but she knows how to use them in alignment with the higher Mars force. Okay. So yeah, when we join the ticket of a lesser frequency in order to have in this kingdom, and again, we all had to do that a little bit to learn it. And sometimes it's for her children. And so there's a lot of nuance here. I don't want to skip over the nuance, but hear the poetry. We say that here. When I say hear the poetry, it means listen to the archetypal codes that are encoded in the Sophia logos. You have to have a certain maturity spiritually to say, okay, I'm going to listen from the heart, because the heart is the decoder. The mind as an instrument of polarity can always say, well, you said that, that's right, that's not right, that's right. And we need the mind. But when we go into the heart, we separate the wheat from the chaff like Virgo, and we understand the wisdom. And Virgo is digestion. And what Virgo really digests is the sound current. Virgo is ruled by Mercury, which is the word, the mind, the light of the mind. And Virgo, the purity of the Virgin, knows how to digest that. Okay. All right. Well, I think I'm going to jump ahead just one moment. Okay. I'm going to go with it. I'm going to save this for next time. This writing kept coming in. I couldn't stop the stream. And all right. This is the betrayal of Eve. So we'll just take a moment if you need to. Take a breath. And we are about to read this transmission that is really, really potent, really powerful. All right. Okay. The divine goddess, the divine image of the Holy Feminine, is the divine image that I'd like you to receive, impressing upon you this wisdom. And again, may you receive what you're meant to receive. May you receive the poetry. The poets hold the power to transmit the truth. They go beyond the fallen language and they resurrect what we call the lost word. The betrayal of Eve from the etheric feminine writings. So this is how they introduced it. This is taken from the etheric plane, the etheric feminine hall of Akashic record, and it's called the path of Eve. So this wisdom and these words are given from the motherhood. And the way they showed me, it's as they're looking into the timelines of our planet and they're perceiving we're at this crossroads where we have to decide. This shows some of the possible pitfalls that are ahead and some that we've already taken. But it doesn't mean that we won't have a Sophionic correction as we talk about Eve, the path of Eve. And then it says, betrayed by her own. Eve betrayed by her own. Betrayed by the gurus, the politicians on both sides, the priests, the rabbis, the psychoanalysts. Eve is the one who came to suffer. Now, we don't mean all. And I work with I'd say 75% of the people who come my way work in the high level of mental health as therapists in the master's level and doctorates and beyond. So there's a lot of people in that field that are learning the wisdom for this reason. It's going to change. The divine feminine is going to govern the new analysis. Okay. Eve is the one who came to suffer. She was disowned, denied, exploited, and at last, she was made irrelevant in the eyes of the so-called modern liberal culture. Now, I don't mean only liberal politics because it's conservative as well. Again, hear the poetry of this. It has to do with how we went so far and we abandoned the wisdom. She was abandoned by her own. Those who fought for her rights in the end said, oh, no. We can't be bothered with what you are truly. She was bedazzled with fashion, with gimmicky politics created by lower minds who comprehend not the wisdom. It's a mouthful. Bedazzled with fashion, meaning just the whole lust frequency, with gimmicky politics created by lower minds who comprehend not the wisdom. Eve was betrayed by her own sons and daughters. Those who become spiritually deformed and corrupted of soul forgot who the mother was. They forgot their own mother. They imitated her at first, and then they stripped her of her holy parts. They imitated her at first, and then they stripped her of her holy parts and invaded her womb. Yes, it was Eve who came for the human race, bringing her sacred heart that would suffer as the mother of humanity. Women would turn their backs on their own spiritual power in the end. In the last video, I read the Gnostic Eucharist. It's at the end of the Divine Feminine Impulse. I really recommend that you watch that video. It was stalled. It was definitely stalled because of the day it came out. Watch the very end. The mother of humanity, women would turn their backs on their own spiritual power, wanting to be accepted in the end. They would ingest substances desperate to reconnect to the truth. In other words, in the end, they couldn't do it without ingesting substances. When it was they who stomped it out and cheered for their own capture, they lost the image of the soul who had been given the very powers to create as the Godhead. The woman was given the exact template of God, of the holiest of holies, to bring life into this world, to anchor something that comes from so far beyond into this world. That power was given to woman. Of course, it takes both the spermatoza and the ovum, but the woman has to bring that seed to fruition, and she needs wisdom to do it in the new way. We say that the woman anchors in all the spiritual bodies. This is something that you can see in the first year of Holy Womanhood and all of the work in Light Body Woman mentorships. So what they're saying is that now there are substances of the earth that are holy that might assist in certain ways, but even those will be highly misused, and they will have an adverse effect because of the fallen state of the human race. It's happening already. I've been introduced to that in my work for decades. Women cheered for their own capture. They lost the image of the soul who had been given these powers, and the culture began to sink. The culture began to sink, bedazzled with everything but the truth. Yes, woman was stomped out. She became the machine. Woman became the machine, raped and pillaged. She powered the tech, what we call the techno-feminine. The liberal women were just as much to blame as the witch hunters and the inquisitioners, for they lost the image of the soul. They allowed it to be replaced with something that was a much lower frequency of wisdom. They sold out for a worldly image. They fought and marched for this and were spiritually blinded. They lost the ability to see in the higher worlds and only focused on 3D world, which has plenty of problems and disillusionment. Those who tried to tell them were misunderstood. Again, we are reading the betrayal of Eve. This is the betrayal of Eve that we are looking at on the spring equinox of rebirth. Those who tried to tell them were misunderstood. They were stoned. They were persecuted. They were drowned. Or they could not be seen or heard at all. They were virtually invisible to the 3D dwellers. Their wisdom held a potency those of us who carry it know exactly what that means in ways that I will one day talk about. They couldn't be seen. They couldn't heard. The audible word of wisdom sounded like gibberish. It sounded like the fool's wisdom on this planet. The true knowledge was betrayed for conspiracies and for all this other stuff that is run by people who do not hold Eve's wisdom or, in the end, care 2 cents about what happens to her and her spiritual technology. Their words were not even audible to the deformed spiritual faculties of true sight and true listening. Now, what I want to say about that is when we say deformed here, we're talking about the spiritual bodies. We have spiritual bodies, and it's really the astral body that is the most deformed. We talk about the purification of the astral body and the regeneration of the astral body. That is this wisdom. In Light Body Woman, in Light Body Yoga, which is a divine feminine yoga, it was to regenerate the astral body of Eve. And it requires everything we're talking about with the heart. She can't get the heart back without the true knowledge with a capital K. But so these bodies become so deformed that they do not operate in their higher planes anymore. If you don't have the kind of astral body that can walk in the solar realms, you will never get there. You'll have to keep coming back and incarnating on the wheel and going around and around in the animal body until you are able to access the wisdom, digest it, and begin the feminine alchemy. Then that body, and that's what all of our work is here, is built. So that's what we mean by deformed. Because there's beauty in every shape and form, and we know that, and we honor that. But to become spiritually blind is to lose the ability to see beyond the carnal senses. We call it the envelope of the senses in mysticism and esotericism. It's said that the pentagram, the 5 powers of the Christo Sophia, is there's a big seal placed around it, and now we have the lower faculties of perceiving reality. And that is what we're working with. Some people say 1% of the spectrum. I've heard as high as 10, but we don't see. We don't know what's there. We don't hear. We don't hear the poetry. Those who tried to tell them were misunderstood. They could not be seen or heard. They lost sight, a spiritual sight and listening. The spiritual women fought amongst each other. That's what happens now. They say the spiritual women fought amongst each other. They betrayed each other. They competed with each other. They stole from each other. Those who had not even stepped on to the genuine path of feminine alchemy, the path of female initiation, gained the most traction in the underworld. For the Archons made sure that it was this way, and that the women who that were carrying the stream were humiliated, betrayed, tossed to the side, had no visibility. For the Archons made sure it was this way. And we'll say that again. The Archons made sure. That is the greatest punishment to the female initiate. And it happens over and over. And even though she serves with her total and full commitment to that contract, and this is what we work with in Holy Descent, she takes the hit. She takes the sorrow of the dark mother. She takes the hit of the crone. She takes the hit of the dark feminine until she can regenerate it to her true power. The Archons made sure it was this way. Those women with rage and zero wisdom took over, and they claimed to hold the light. But in the inverted world, this was not light at all. And by light, we mean information. We mean light is information. It's sound current. Sound creates light, and on light travels the waves of wisdom. The wisdom comes in through the sun and through the great central sun, the sun behind the sun, the invisible light. That light is what takes the higher faculties. You cannot access that light until you have those. It was not light at all, meaning it wasn't wisdom. It didn't hold the frequency of wisdom, but false light. And the male prophets and priests preached of the Antichrist, but they too were blind to Eve. as the pristine mother soul with the body of the angelic forces. So it is Eve in goddess Kabbalah. Eve holds the feminine realms. Eve holds the angels. You don't get to work with the angels unless you work with the heart, and Eve is the heart. So it's the heart in all of us, all male, female, whatever, however you identify, you hold a heart. And you have to gain entry to the tabernacle within that heart. And that is guarded so fiercely so that it is not tainted with the lower wisdom. And that's why it is such a process to really go in. We can go into the stillness and the silence, which is the realms. But once we get in them, there are realms behind the realms. They go on. Okay, the priests preach of the Antichrist, but they too were blind to Eve as the pristine mother with the body of their image of Mary, their image of Marie, their image of Mary was incomplete. And so the virgin, thank God, is honored in religion, and her alchemy, because of the transfer of the wisdom and the feminine mysteries into the church holds that wisdom, and they know some of it. They understand what was removed. And there are those that would like to open that back up. So keep the faith for those of you. We support those who are devout and devotional in religions because 99% are really, really good people. I don't know what, I threw that word out, that number out, but meaning most people that take the time to pray and believe truly want to believe in something beyond the physical body, and they want to understand the soul. So now we're understanding the feminine aspect of the soul. For in their ignorance, this is for those who misunderstood Mary. For in their ignorance, they knew not the feminine Christ, the Magdalene. They knew not the Sophia of Christ, the blazing feminine star of Venus, who is the goddess. And her vehicles, those who could survive in the underworld, worked 24/7 in the silence with the great angelic powers of Eve's holy tree of life, while most gave way to diverted and were diverted by war and conspiracies, false politics of the heart that lack the true wisdom. So again, this came in quite strong. But what that means is most people caved under the pressure. It was too much. I tell you that for me to say, I'm telling you the truth, that for me to use the word holy womanhood, there was a fear, and I mean deep. And we may use other names at times, but that fear of saying, this is the Holy Womanhood podcast, and she has returned. That fear goes deep, and it turns into pretend conflicts that go into politics that have nothing to do, have no business, because they haven't entered into the stream. Okay, so something important to say here is that Eve is the commander of the angels. It is the woman who holds the power of the spoken word. Now, the man does too. I ask to really receive the poetry. The logos is regenerated. We call it the lost word through the heart. It is the heart that gives birth to Christ, the verbum, the word. And only through the mother's consciousness, when it is restored and corrected. This is the goddess correction on our planet Earth. So those who knew not the true meaning of Mary and her vehicles, so those who worked for it had to work 24/7, and we have. I joke about my work sometimes. You could be considered crazy to do this work because you never let off the gas. There are times when you're pounded down so hard that you like might lose a year or something, but going through some of the darkness that will hit and attack the archontic forces when they completely go in hard, and they do, but your commitment never stops. You can't think of anything else because the wisdom has taken root, and root, let me be very clear, the root is the mother. In mysticism, in the tree, the root is the health of the tree, and the root is the mother. The seed is the father, but the root that grows, when you think of the seed, when it cracks and it grows roots, that is the mother, and that is in the underworld. And so when this work, once it takes root inside you, you're a lifer. And in the case of this work and my work, it reconnects you to your soul, your group. This is the Magdalene Magi lineage, meaning it's the feminine magi that come with the holy wisdom and the blazing star of Bethlehem, the star of Venus. And yes, at last there came a time when the collective woman of the underworld rejected the mother and motherhood altogether, and Eve lost her womb. There have been prophetic texts and novels that have been written that speak of this. It's a true timeline. Oh, it's a true timeline. It's one we've been talking about for a long time. When I first started to talk about it, it was really hard. People came at me hard. And yes, at last there came a time when the collective woman of the underworld rejected the mother and motherhood altogether, and Eve lost her womb. It was taken over as soulless technology in the name of equality and convenience. And the woman partied. She partied. And she drenched herself in jewels and fashions, forgetting the divine feminine substance of Sophia, her own soul. She became one of them. Woman turned upon woman. The famous and the celebrities were elevated to the status of gods and goddesses with shallow hearts and shallow art that imitated me. The true artists. It says that imitated we, the true artists, who had carried the cross and completed the initiations. They held the true art, the art of the feminine, the art of the mother and her spiritual body parts that formed the entire cosmos, those parts that live inside every woman. Their art, their words were imitated and stolen and made the counterfeit art that held the frequency of the Archons and holy art, stolen from the goddess with smug smiles and deceptive friends, all wanting something from each other, jealous of each other, wanting each other's status, each other's fame, each other's audience. The fake art of the underworld became so celebrated, and true spiritual art became outlawed. Okay, this is crazy. I'm only reading this for the second time. True spiritual art was outlawed. It became illegal and ridiculed by those false artists who know Sophia not. They betrayed Eve. Yes, those fake friends in fashion, in culture, betrayed her. They stole her body in the name of art, beauty, and fake shallow philosophy. The men who used Eve, who took her body, her youth in relationships, who stole her youth, who used her body and discarded her to keep trading in for the younger and the younger. And this has to be said. They were elevated and celebrated. They were praised. They were congratulated on their accomplishments. But the goddess knew the truth, even if she was afraid to speak it. She clocked it all. And she activated her holy vessels, those who carry the codes of the holy womanhood, those who carry the truth with a capital T in their heart, those who had given their life, sacrificed their ego in the flame of the great mother Kali. They knew, they saw, they recorded. Their vision had been restored, and they could see plain as day who was who their betrayers were. They had pity, but they saw the truth, and they could not unsee it. Some had been best friends, some sisters, mothers, people they worked with betrayed them. But all veils were lifted, and the truth was seen, and the path was nearly unbearable. But Sophia's vessels carried on. They carried on. And they held the wisdom in frequency, in their words, in their actions. And most importantly, and we say again, most importantly, in their holy tears. For they knew the truth of the betrayal. They knew the truth of saying, if I can find even 10 pure souls, I forget where that saying comes from, but they referenced it, on earth, it would be good. They knew that the human race had sunk so deep into the quicksand of lust frequency, disguised as every other thing but what it was. Again, we are not against a little bit of lust and desire because it's necessary to awaken. I just want to say that for those of you who might be new to this work. When we say lust, we're not talking about being pure as in Puritan Virgin Mary. We're talking about holding the wisdom to use it because it is the feminine force. It is the light body Shakti of the feminine Mars mysteries and the Holy Spirit. So what they're saying is that they kept the frequency in their tears because they cried and they suffered and they mourned the human race, their sons and daughters, because they knew they were the great mother who had birthed all of it. They knew the truth of the betrayal. Okay. They knew that the human race had sunk so deep in the pure quicksand of lust frequency, disguised as everything, and they gathered and they prayed and they knew of the great mission. They knew of, and Mother Mary came to them, the Mary of souls. She came and she blessed them, and she bestowed all her heavenly angels, for they had prepared the vessel to hold the high voltage forces of the heavenly image of the Virgin and her sword of truth and justice. Their lips remained pure. Their heart carried the great music of the stars and the spheres and the tree of life, and they began the next stage of their work together, unified and ready to usher in the golden dawn of the new Eve. And Mary Sophia, in her name, Sophia, we ride at dawn. We ride at dawn in the name of Sophia, Eve Sophia. We ride at dawn. I'm going to, and I just want to say, as we begin to close this out, that remastered is this container. This is where we do this work. And so if you want to know the details, please look at the Divine Feminine Impulse, the first 10 minutes, and you will see. But we're coming together, and we open today on spring equinox when you are seeing this with the ritual of the new year and with the working of the angelic realms in a very powerful way. This is a container to do exactly what the master spoke of. That is why it has been creative. And so I will just say that. I will leave a link underneath the video on all podcast platforms. It's called Remastered, and it's open enrollment. We have an amazing group showing up to kick it off, our founding members. What I would like to also say, I'm just being shown to go back and look at some of the things that were said. In no way are we speaking about people who are born in a body where they may not identify all the way feminine or all the way masculine. I want to say that really clearly. We have full support of human freedom here and human ability to express and live out the blueprint that we have come in with. However, there's another side to that. We cannot condone it without wisdom, meaning when things are happening where that is being exploited, we will have to, under our contract, speak what we know with kindness and compassion, but we do it in the celebration of all human beings. And when we talk about the collective woman, it's the whole human race. But there is a very real power that we have lost completely. We've lost the feminine mysteries. My entire body of work is the reclamation of the feminine mysteries, which are the counterpart and which will restore love, fertility, and art. And so at last, I will say to finish this that, and we will be doing a podcast around this as well also, but if you are someone in this lifetime and you're in a female body and you're not choosing partnership or to become a mother, a physical mother, this work is for you. Because you're a cultivator of the wisdom, and regardless, you hold a female form and you are part of the collective archetype of Eve, and we need you. We need all all vessels on board for this work. And so that being said, this work is for the young and the old, the maiden, the mothers, and the crones. It's for all religions. This is the universal baptizing, and we will seed this wisdom into all religions so that people can take it back and do that union and to help to evolve it and bring it into its highest form. We are getting ready to enter the goddess epoch with everything happening in our world right now, with everything happening on our planet right now. And it's only beginning. Things are going to get really, really tough. But we are doing this work in the fierce way that transmission from the Akashic feminine records and the Motherhood of Light spoke of. And we are here for it. We ride at dawn on this spring equinox as the betrayal and regeneration of Eve. And so that being said, please subscribe. Please hit the notification bell if you're on YouTube. Please subscribe on Spotify and tell your neighbors, tell your friends, tell your daughters, tell your nieces and nephews, tell your groups that you are with that this is a stream. And for those of you who remember the Art of the Feminine podcast, this stream is going to go. It's going to go. And it's the complement to the study that we're doing as well. And the next podcasts are going to be more digestible, shorter length. They'll be just packets enough where you can hear every week and receive it, but enough that you can truly, truly digest it. And you won't have to hear a long lecture every week. And so that being said, I thank you with my whole heart for being here. I encourage all of you to seek out the truth, seek out the mysteries, seek out the wisdom. This is one stream where you will find it. Follow your heart, do your mission, waste no time. Do it while you have a body, because this is the time. that we are making these changes. It's now. It has arrived, and we ride at dawn in the name of divine love. And so that being said, I wish you a very, very happy equinox, happy astrological new year. This is Shannon Port, and I will see you next time on the Holy Womanhood podcast. I welcome men, women, and all peoples in between, that polarity, to come join us. If this speaks to you, you're part of it, and we welcome you to be here. Until next time, sending you huge love.